All right, so good evening, everyone. My name is Christine Liu, and I'm the Assistant Director of Operations at The Basement. So today's event is how to pitch your startup, and it's part of our Entrepreneurial Toolkit series featuring our guest speaker, Salvador Duenas. So I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Sal. I know he has a lot of important insight that he can share with you all. So without further ado, Sal, take it away.
Yeah, really happy to be here. Sorry we're having like some tech issues. I hope that Abhishek and Christopher, you're able to get some value out of this discussion. And for those that are watching the recording after, I'm excited for you all to learn about like pitching and storytelling from the Future Founders perspective. So to start, I want to introduce myself. So I'm the Senior Startups Manager at an accelerator called Future Founders. I run an accelerator for early stage founders to help them start and scale their businesses. So I've been in this role for about like 6 years, just helping various startups across multiple industries get started, find early customers, do customer discovery, pitch their startup, get funding, give away money, all that stuff. I also have another role that's new this year where I am managing a program for aspiring investors. So I am also on the other side of the table, helping people who want to break into venture capital, find that job and get access to those resources. So I work for two organizations, Future Founders and Chicago Blend. And some cool stuff about Future Founders is that the type of stuff that I'm going to be working with all of you today has led our startups to generate over $140 million in revenue and create over 1,000 jobs. So I'm really excited about sharing with all you what I typically share with the founders in the program. So here's some of our sponsors at Future Founders and some other cool stats. The other one that I want to call out is we have nearly $86 million raised in capital from our founders who are in young founders, first-time founders in their 20s. So what I'm about to teach you, I work with the founders on this stuff too. So let's get started. So that's the intros. Let's get right into the content. So the theme for this discussion, what I hope you all take away from this, is that pitching essentially combines what works, existing methodologies and existing ways, the science behind storytelling. It combines things that we know work and are successful with your personal authentic strengths, like as the speaker, as the one presenting. One thing I hope you take away from this discussion is like you don't have to be somebody you're not as you begin pitching, as you choose like what to include, where to be creative, and all that stuff. I'm going to share with you today the kind of foundational stuff that we know works, but it's your job as the founder, as the one pitching, to just cherry pick the things that just make more sense to you and are more authentic to you. So we're going to come back to this throughout this discussion and kind of remind you all that you don't have to be this like, if you're not this like extroverted, funny, charismatic person, that's okay. We have other things that can work as you pitch your startup, your business, or tell your story. So with that, I want to kickstart this with reviewing a 90-second pitch competition, a 90-second pitch. We're going to go over two types of pitches today. The first is the 90-second elevator pitch. We're going to work with Candace here on that. And the other pitch that we're going to work on is a more extended pitch, like 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm going to actually, give me a second, reshare my screen because I need sound for this. Okay. So for this one, for those that are on the call, if you want to put in the chat after you hear this 90-second pitch, the one thing I'm going to ask all of you for is to put your reaction to her 90-second pitch. What is she doing well? What feedback would you give her? I want to, after I play the video, I want to have a quick discussion over the chat on what's working with the pitch and what's not working with this pitch.
Hi, my name is Candace Blacknall, CEO and co-founder of GABA. Let me share GABA's investment potential, key differentiators, and how we're combating the global doctor shortage. GABA's SaaS platform leverages machine learning to match medical trainees with study tools based on the results of cognitive assessments and exam scores. We are the first medical edtech company to use machine learning, cognitive assessments, and coaching to support learning and career longevity. This enables our target market of 2.5 million medical trainees to save time and money wasted searching for study tools they can use to excel on exams and avoid dropping out of school. Our competitive global go-to-market strategy positions us to gain 7% penetration of U.S. markets within 5 years before scaling abroad in this $33 billion market. Through institutional partnerships like our current one with Morehouse School of Medicine, we have acquired over 100 users on our platform at a monthly 20% increase since launch, which is 3 times the industry standard in new user conversions. We just deployed our first premium offering in September, and we're currently raising $10,000 to reach our milestone goal of an additional 480 hours of development, which is just 5% of our $200,000 seed goal. We are also asking to be connected with university presidents with pre-medical and medical programs. Thank you.
All right, so what is everyone's reaction to that pitch? Go ahead and put it into the chat. What do you think worked well? What do you think some things that she did really well are, and what are some things that maybe some feedback you would give her on what to improve? I'd love to hear everyone's reaction to Candace's pitch. So some positive feedback I would have for Candace is that, she has an excellent presence. She's a really great, she has really good energy. She seems really composed, really confident in what she's talking about. She brings good energy to the discussion. When Candace sent me this, thank you, Christopher. So she shared lots of metrics mentioning to help quantify her success. I think that's great. Definitely very confident. Talking slowly helps make it very clear. Yes, Neil, there's actually science behind talking slowly, like coming across more confident, and people who talk really fast come across as less credible. So I think she has really good composure there and great space between her words. One question I like to ask people after watching her first pitch is, what does GABA do? Does anyone know like what she does, what GABA is doing, what she's building? Because when I first heard this pitch, I struggled to really understand what it was that she's building and what she's, what value she's creating. I understand that like it probably has something to do with medicine and something in the med tech field, but I don't have a lot of clarity around that. And so, I packaged this, I sent it to Candace, I gave her the feedback around like, if, not having clarity around what exactly she's doing, not understanding the value or the core problem that she's solving. Let her know that like, I think the metrics are great, definitely really helpful, but maybe like, trim down some of that to prioritize the story. And so I packaged all that, sent it to Candace, along with, what Neo and Christopher said as well. And she sent me back a new 90-second video with the updated feedback. And so let's see what she has there.
Medical school is tough. And although medical education hasn't changed much in the last 20 years, the requirements to pass national exams have only gotten tougher. To overcome this, medical students buy third-party study tools to use alongside their medical school curriculum. And there are thousands of them. In fact, there are so many that it's hard to figure out which ones will be effective. I made the same mistake that many medical trainees make. I bought an $800 study tool that I had to replace with a $200 option. In a matter of weeks, I'd made an expensive mistake and lost valuable study time. GABA leverages machine learning to bring the transparency that Glassdoor brought to hiring to medical education. We find what we call your cognitive thumbprint to match you with study tools that work with your unique brain. Through institutional partnerships like our current one with Morehouse School of Medicine, we have acquired over 200 users on our platform at a monthly 20% increase since launch, which is 3 times the industry standard in new user conversions. We just launched our first premium offering, and we're currently raising $10,000 to complete an additional 480 hours of development to improve the user experience and drive premium conversions. We hope you'll join us in making medical education smarter. Thank you.
All right, so that's her updated pitch. And I think, a lot of us would say that we enjoy the second pitch a lot better. To me, things come across a lot more clear. She started with this big statement around like medical school being tough. I'm not a medical school student, so I don't understand like the details of that, but like I can envision, that problem and that struggle that she's going through. She then expands and creates this like personal story and this problem she encountered trying to solve that toughness with these medical study tools. And if you kind of like quantify, her whole story in the beginning, It was like 40 seconds of like personal story and her personal anecdote before she even introduced what GABA even was. And I think by taking the time to kind of draw that narrative, convey that emotions, give her personal story as it relates to like the problem that she's solving, I think it really helped her in the beginning. And then the back half of her pitch, the second half, where she starts talking about the business and starts talking about the solution, I think hits a lot better once we're already bought in with the emotional side of what she's working on. So I like showing this as like a primer to like our discussion, because my favorite fact here between these two videos is that nothing changed with her business. She didn't like get more customers. She didn't grow more sales. She didn't like hire anybody new. She didn't like, build more of her product. Like the business looks exactly the same between these two videos, but through communicating in a more efficient way by investing in the emotions and the story in the beginning, she comes across significantly more credible. She looks a lot better with her, overall pitch and presentation. And I think it just like captures the audience and gets people invested a lot better. So I hope you take something from this discussion, from Candace's example. Candace is one of the founders that we get to work with at Future Founders, and she's currently raising money to grow her business from there. So we're really excited for Candace, and she agreed to let me share this for education purposes. So from there, I want to now create a longer discussion around a longer pitch. That's like a 90-second pitch. I want to now kind of move on and talk about a longer format. So like when you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, when you have a bit more time, like how do you talk about each of the sections? How do you do things really well? I like to spend a lot of time talking about the introduction and like the emotional side of a story. So we're going to kick things off by talking about that. Then I tend to deprioritize the solution part of it. I like to advise founders to not get into the nitty gritty and kind of more efficiently get through the solution part. Then what type of business stuff should you include? What type of traction? What type of stats? What's all that kind of stuff you should include in your pitch? And then finally, I want to talk to all of you on how to close it out, round it out, and what to ask for and how to ask for things really well. So first thing is the intro. This is your hook, right? We know this. You want to capture your audience, capture their attention. And there's a couple different ways that you can do that. Here's a list of things that we've seen work in pitching and in startups. And this is where I want to call back to the original point I made in the beginning about combining what works with your authentic strengths. There's certain things here that you might not be comfortable with or really make sense to include for your pitch, and that's okay. You don't have to do these things. But one of these things probably does make sense and you are really comfortable and excited about, and you could see it totally killing in your presentation. So I want to walk through a couple of these and give you a couple examples and to hopefully like inspire you all to find something that works for you. So one intro that I love, probably my favorite way of introducing a startup is from Sam Padilla right here. He's going to talk to us about Seed Mentor, and I just love the way he starts it off and demonstrates the problem that he's solving.
Bom dia, um imenso prazer para mim estar com vocês comentando um pouco mais de... Hold on. Do you understand a word of what I just said? Well, no, because I was speaking in Portuguese, and that is my point. Imagine not knowing what's going on around you, not only because of the language, but also because of the culture, the people, and the system just working differently than what you're used to. Well, that is the reality of 250,000 international students who come to the United States every year. Hello, my name is Samuel Padilla. I am an international student from Brazil and Colombia, and I'm the CEO of Seed Mentor. In Seed Mentor, we help international students adapt and succeed in the US. We developed a program to help these students speed up their adaptation process and develop personally, academically, and professionally. We do this through online video content and personalized mentorship. We sell this program to colleges so that these colleges can offer it to international students.
So what I love there is that, it immediately captures your attention. It really turns heads. It starts talking a different language in Portuguese, and we're all like, what is going on? Like, why is Sal showing me this pitch in a different language? Immediately captures your attention. It's different. It has that shock value. And the second part that's really cool about it is it totally makes sense for what he's working on. He's demonstrating the problem. He is putting us in the shoes of his customers, of international students that he is supporting with his company Stephen mentor. So that's something that only works for him. I doubt you starting your pitch in a different language is going to work for you. But I hope this inspires you to think getting creative on how to demonstrate the problem and convey that emotion. Other ways you could do that.
Bom dia, é um imenso prazer para mim estar com
Moving on. Other ways you could do that is with a surprising fact. We've seen, we need, it's important to have the statistics and have that kind of validation. So I want to show you all a cool intro to a really important company.
I'm Liam Davis-Mead. I'm here with my co-founder Shane Taylor, and we're ScriptPad. ScriptPad transforms the iPad and iPhone into a digital prescription pad, enabling doctors to write prescriptions faster and safer than their current paper process. Why do this? Because this stuff kills people. This is an example of a completely illegible handwritten paper prescription. The pharmacist in this case dispensed the wrong heart medication because he couldn't read the doctor's handwriting. He mistook Iserdil for Plendil, and instead of controlling the patient's condition, the medication caused a massive and fatal heart attack. And this happens again and again and again. In fact, of the 1.7 billion handwritten prescriptions scrawled out each year on those familiar paper script pads, up to 40% contain some form of error, whether it's missed drug interactions, improper dosing, or just plain unreadable handwriting. Each year, 7,000 people die, and another 1.5 million are injured as a result of these errors, causing billions in avoidable hospitalization.
So this is pretty powerful, right? These are really, shocking statistics that, if you're not in the know, it can be, really shocking in that way. So, 40% of these notes containing errors, I think is an important statement. And then following that up with more data around the problem and how important this is to solve, from the lives lost to the injuries to the economic value that has happened because of this. So this surprising fact works really well for ScriptPad. That's how they started. That's how they loop us in. That's how they get us hooked. So what you're working on may not be saving lives directly like ScriptPad, but if you have that big shock value number, that shock value stat, I think it's important to include in what you're working on. So two totally different ways of starting your pitch. I do want to quickly allude to using slides or materials, or what's often done in startups, having a pitch deck. This is a slide from Airbnb's pitch deck when they raised one of their rounds. I thought, this is a really popular slide that's passed around. A lot of people in the startup ecosystem are familiar with it. And I think it conveys what Airbnb is working on really well and the problem that they're doing. So if you are in one of these situations where you need to develop a pitch deck, here's a great example to kind of help move that along. Another example I really enjoy, when creating pitch decks or materials and stuff like that is, in certain cases you may have to educate the audience, just like ScriptPad had to do about the handwritten notes. Whatever you're working on, you might have to educate the audience too on the movement, what's happening, what's in the space. So here's just another pitch deck example that I think does that really well. This is for an online community called Heartbeat. It's a competitor to Discord or Slack. So I think the way they started their pitch deck here is done really well. Throughout the discussion, I'm going to allude to pitch decks and how to use slides and stuff like that. So we're going to come back to stuff like this, but we're going to move on. So this is where most of my advice to founders ends up being around, is how to capture that emotion, how to hook people right away. In Candace's case, she spent 40 seconds out of 90 seconds of her pitch just doing that and conveying that emotion, and I think it really worked for her, and it ended up being a huge benefit. And that's the type of investment that I encourage all of you to make as well. After you hook them, and now it's time to kind of talk about, okay, how are you solving this problem? How are you saving lives? How are you changing the world and all that? I think there's a couple different ways of doing that too. And I have some examples for that. So here's another company. This one's based out of Chicago. And I'll let Nico take it from here. And then we'll talk about it after. Oh no.
Statistically, people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of sharks. I was one of those people. I grew up around the beach, and I love sharks. But I used to be absolutely terrified of public speaking. In fact, 8 years ago, I had a full-on anxiety attack in front of my entire college class. Palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. My mind turned into spaghetti, and I totally botched my presentation. Improving my communication skills was a journey that took years, and even working with a professional speech coach. And that journey changed my life. Just think of how essential communication skills are, especially in the workplace, where real dollars are on the line. We live in an era where language learning, mindfulness training, and fitness coaching have all gone mainstream thanks to our phones. But getting good feedback on our communication is still so hard and uncomfortable, and it hasn't changed in over 100 years. Why aren't we using the incredible advances now available through artificial intelligence and automated speech recognition to tackle this everyday problem? That's where we come in. I'm Nico, co-founder and CEO of Speako. We use automated voice analytics to reimagine what's possible with communications coaching. And in doing so, we've created the world's smartest personal speech coach to help you gain self-awareness and build confidence so that you can effectively deliver your message when it matters most. As a B2C...
Okay, so there's a couple things I want to call out here that I think Nico did super well. So first, we have our lovely surprising fact, right? Just wanted to mention that. That was like how we, people being more scared of public speaking than sharks. Pretty cute way of starting this off. From there, I love this slide here. One thing that I recommend founders do all the time when they talk about their solution is to compare it to an existing idea or an existing product. So Duolingo for speech, you don't need to know all the intricacies of Speako. You don't need to know the feature by feature, page by page, and everything it can offer. But by saying Duolingo for speech, or Headspace for speech, or Fitbit for speech, you can immediately visualize most of what that app probably does. And it takes like 3 words to do it. If you remember Candace's speech in the beginning, she said the transparency that Glassdoor brought for hiring, she's using for medical school, medical study tools. So Glassdoor for study tools, right? Really easy. This is something I recommend a lot of founders do, especially early on as they're communicating, because you don't have time to sit there and get in the weeds. That's usually not the fun part. The fun part to me is the introduction and the emotions that we covered earlier. So that's something I recommend a lot of founders do. Airbnb for event spaces. You can immediately visualize that. Uber for barbers. You can immediately visualize like what that looks like. And if you do that, you can prioritize other sections in your pitch, like the intro, or what we'll talk about next, which is like the business stuff. So about the business stuff, there's a handful of things to cover, different depending on who you're pitching, the audience that you're pitching to, or the pitch competition that you're doing. They may ask you to cover different things. Here's some like most common things. The business opportunity, total addressable market is something that people ask a lot about. How you plan on entering the market, how you plan on making money, the team, and then the one thing I personally love to talk about is the traction and milestones part. So we're going to cover all of this. And we're going to go back to Speako. And it's at this point that a lot of people think that this is an ad for Speako. This presentation is not an ad for Speako. I understand the irony of doing a presentation on pitching and then using a pitching startup and speech startup to convey that. This is just a coincidence. I really like what Nico's doing.
We bootstrapped.
So this is not an ad, but I've done that before. With that said, here is how Nico communicates money and go-to-market.
Speako to over $500,000 in sales, and we're on track to reach 5 million in lifetime sales by next year. We've quickly become the #1 rated speech coaching app on the App Store, and to date, our app has helped over 100,000 people, with over 65% of those being women and people of color. We use a B2C freemium subscription model, with subscriptions that cost 12 bucks a month or 50 bucks a year. Over the past 12 months, we've had a compound monthly growth rate of 14% through organic search and speech coaches as distribution partners. Plus, we're starting to do some digital marketing where we're seeing lifetime value to customer acquisition cost ratios of 2-to-1, with a direct path to LTV to CAC ratios of 4-to-1 as we continue to improve our retention. Our next steps are to launch B2B and build our vision to be everywhere your voice is. For example, imagine being on your next Zoom and getting suggestions from Speako on how to speak more concisely and inclusively. And now imagine everyone on your team getting that same kind of feedback too. That's where we're going. And the market is massive. 70% of people want to improve their communication. And today, organizations are spending already $7 billion on this specific problem.
All right, so there's a lot of stuff happening here that I want to break down. First of all, the traction stuff, the revenue, what he's done so far. He's including some slides here that highlight that. I do want to, so he has one slide here around growth, and then he has another slide here around value. So retention is like a great KPI to like around value. Funny thing here about what Nico's doing, I don't know if you caught this, but there's no variable here. We don't know how long it took him to get to $500,000 in revenue. And this is just some fancy startup graph to kind of communicate that. The thing about Nico and Speako is that this is actually like not a flattering number. He's been in business for 3 years. So that he's doing some little creative stuff there, and he doesn't want people to see that. So there's some constructive criticism for him. But there's some other cool stuff happening. One thing that I really love and recommend a lot of founders do is to externalize your credibility. And what Nico's doing here is he's showing an award, something he's won, or something that Speako's won, which is the Apple like apps they love, featured by Apple. That's a great way to externalize your credibility and latch on your name to what you're working on to somebody else who already has like strong brand power. I recommend people do this with any media coverage they've won, any awards. If you're in college, I even recommend putting scholarships and stuff like that down too. And there's a couple of different opportunities to do that. Nico just chose to include his here. We have really, simple pricing, B2C type of subscription service, really simple. Didn't need to spend a lot of time on it. His KPI here, and then here is his ultimate vision and what happens next for Speako. You always want to have something next to capture, something next to do, and this is going to flow into his ask, which we'll cover later in the presentation. So that's a really cool. That's some stuff on the, that's an example of a founder communicating the business side of things. As it relates to the slides, there's some other opportunities to like have a great pitch here too. When you think about like the team slides, this is another slide that a lot of people have. This company chose to externalize their credibility by including the brands and companies that they work for, or that their mentors work for, where their mentors are from too. I think this is a pretty cool hack. I recommend you all do that too. So then we're getting to the last part, which is the landing or the ask, what to do there. So for this one, we're going to go back to Nico. So we have, the market is massive.
If we're fortunate enough to win today, we'll use this capital to hire an Android engineer. And that's going to let us launch on the Google Play Store and open us up to 130 million Android users in the US. I want to close by mentioning that to me, Speako is much more than a tech company. Coming from a family with loved ones who struggle to speak English, I've seen firsthand how the way you speak and how you communicate impacts your personal and professional trajectory and quality of life. Please join us in our mission to help the world speak more confidently, effectively, and inclusively. Thank you.
Cool. So there's a couple things I want to call out here. So, here's where he communicated like how big the market was. So a business stat here, which I think these are two really interesting stats to use there. And then from there, he's asking for the money. So this was the context here is this is a pitch competition where he's going to, first place gets $20,000. So for Nico, he's not only telling us what he's going to use the money for, he's not stopping there. He's taking it one degree further. So he's saying we're going to use the money for an Android developer. And then the next degree from there is by having an Android developer, we're going to have access to 130 million more users. And I think that's a great step. I encourage all of you to take things a step further as well. Don't just tell me what you're going to spend the money on. Tell me what that money is going to help get you in return. And if I were to give some feedback to Nico, I would even tell him to take this like 3 degrees further than this as well. So from that 130 million Android users, how many of those do you think you can get? How many people already signed up or are maybe on a wait list? How much money does that equal? Should you get everybody on the wait list to convert to paying customers? That's all really important stats and helps you come across like incredibly credible. Then the last thing is he closed it out and he closed the loop on his pitch. So back to the emotion, back to the value, back to the problem that he's solving, and he used his personal anecdote to do that. So always want to close the loop and come back and hit those emotions again that you were hitting in the beginning.
Our next step.
So this is where I want to get to, call out go back to the pitch deck and stuff too. So this is another example of, somebody asking for money. So this is back to the Heartbeat software, community software I was telling you earlier, the like Slack Discord competitor. They were raising money. They were raising $600,000. And they didn't just say what they were spending the money on. They said what they could get in return by spending the money. So for them, they were able to get more communities, increase their revenue, and add, a couple team members from there. So just another example of another company taking things further. Don't just say what you're spending the money on. You say what that money is going to get you in return. So this is where I come back to the core theme and kind of, the big idea I hope you take away from today. There's things that work, and we covered all of them in all the different parts of the pitch. And so what I encourage all of you to do is just find what works for you, what makes sense for you to do. You don't have to be somebody you're not. You can, just be authentic and just find the things that really make sense for your business. So gave you a lot of different examples on what to do, what to include, what the best way to do things are. And so I hope from this discussion, you're able to pick apart the things that you really enjoyed and that make sense for what you're working on. And so that's my discussion. So I'm, down to answer any questions any of you have. If any of you have a pitch that you want feedback on, I'm down to do some live coaching on the call right now too. I now want to pass it all to you for any questions or feedback or things that you want to talk about. The rest of the time is yours to use. Yeah. Get on a call with you guys, help out in any way, offer some feedback. Also, if you're interested in being a part of Future Founders or being part of our accelerator, happy to talk about the program and stuff too. So if there's no other questions or discussion, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to come and help you all.